What do you think that we are going to see now in the next 6 months?
I think that anywhere from a quarter to a third of our beloved restaurants probably won't make it, or at least won't make it in the long term.
So Mark, I know with everything that's going on, talking about food sometimes can be a little bit strange, but you were up north last weekend and taking a look at the reopening of a lot of restaurants and maybe what our new experience will be in a COVID-19 world eating out. What was your experience? I read a little bit about it, but share with us what your experience was and how much different it was from what we experienced
Sure.
in early March.
Yeah, it was surreal, I guess, as everything has sort of been since COVID hit. I was up there for about 5 days in the Traverse City area because that was one of the regions that was able to partially reopen dining rooms at 50% capacity. All staff are supposed to wear face masks. Guests are supposed to wear face masks until they get to the table. And that's basically what I found. So my best experience, I would say, was at a place called Trattoria Stella, which is a very popular Italian restaurant up in Traverse City. They're known for their great service, their wine, of course, the fabulous food. And I was covering the reopenings, but I also wanted to kind of have that first person perspective, especially as the restaurant critic, who hasn't been able to do my job in that way in months. And so I made a reservation at Stella. They were only doing reservations. Now, Stella seats about 175 people on a good day, but they were only taking about 50 reservations that night. It was their first day of service. Obviously, this was Friday evening. I had an 8 o'clock reservation. And, right when you show up and you walk in the door, face masks are required. And there's a list of rules, the house rules. And that's something that I saw all weekend long. Everyone has, either a page or a sign on the door, or they hand it to you at the table that say, this is how we're going to operate. So we walked in and, the Stella dining or the bar area is what greets you. And usually it's bustling. There's, action and lots of people and cocktails being made. And, now there's a lonely cocktail shaker because that entire area was completely cleared out. They had a table set up just for their carryout service. Yeah. And then the whole bar area was empty.
What was that feeling like? I mean, obviously you walk into a place where you had seen before and you expected something different. Yeah. Now you have a restaurant that's kind of empty and a third capacity.
Yeah, it was very, let's put it this way, it was very empty. It's surreal. I mean, it's, part of the joy of going to a restaurant is that conviviality and that energy of people and the spirit of the place. And without it, it kind of changes the tone, I guess, or the greeting, especially when you walk in and there's a piece of plexiglass in front of the hostess stand, because, that's right at the door, and the hostess is wearing a face mask and greets you. It's just, there's a sense of anxiety that you can feel from the restaurant, from, maybe that's just, me projecting a little bit, but there's definitely anxiety. So, after we were seated, you can remove your face mask, and Stella was the only place that actually had a place for you to put your face mask. They had these little paper bags with a handwritten note and said, face mask, well, face mask, just take it off and enjoy your meal. And which is what we did. And at that point, dinner mostly proceeded as it did pre-COVID, other than the fact that the waiter was wearing a face mask. Mm-hmm. And did tell us that he'd be limiting his touches. So we were, to pour our own water, and he was wearing gloves. But other than that, it felt like a small bit of normalcy in these kind of, upside down times to have somebody else make me a cocktail. I mean, there was a point in the night where I felt like I was, it just felt so normal that I wanted to cry a little bit. And then, we tipped well and left. But then there's that sort of anxiety of, well, what if I was the one that has been asymptomatic and going to this place? There's just so many unknowns about this thing that it's hard to the way that I likened it was like, the suspension of disbelief. When there's a film that you're watching and there's a plot hole in the film, but you just kind of suspend your disbelief to get over to enjoy the film.
Keep moving with it, yeah.
Yeah, so that 90 minutes that we were at the table and eating, we suspended our disbelief, but the minute that we stepped outside, it all kind of came flooding back, the reality of it. And, is this the right choice to be making? I don't, who's to say?
It got me thinking about our relationship with food during this entire pandemic and how it's maybe changed, whether that be from the fact that we're either making more food at home or we couldn't get our hands on certain kinds of foods. And then how that would translate into how we move forward. Will we lose our taste for certain things, or will the high-end places not be so popular anymore? Or are we going to just gravitate on those family favorites or things that, expressed our family history in time? It kind of made me wonder, what is the massive change in our eating that's going to come out of this? And what have you experienced, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to ripple through the entire food system, I think. I mean, just starting with restaurants, I'm pretty sure we can put a nail in the coffin of communal dining. Sitting very close at a communal dining table, shared plates also.
Some people, which might be.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be. I think I had to always be in the mood for communal dining, and
you have to be up for it, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. And now I just don't know when I'll be up for that again. And I'm sure that there are a lot of folks who are thinking the same. Shared plates too. I don't think we'll be sharing plates very much. When restaurants do reopen. I've also noticed that a lot of the restaurants that have pivoted towards takeout, particularly kind of the higher end restaurants, aren't really doing their high-end food. They're doing fried chicken and maybe lobster rolls, or even a place like Pernod in Birmingham, which was aiming for Michelin star level food, is turned itself into a trattoria doing red sauce Italian classics, because there is this longing for comfort and comfort food. I know personally for me, I've been cooking a lot of food from my own personal history, family recipes.
Like what? Give us an idea of what you've been making.
One of my favorite dishes that I've been making is called plov. It's a dish from Uzbekistan, but it was popular all throughout the Soviet Union. And it's pilaf, but made with lamb, whole heads of garlic that are buried in the rice that you cook with this aromatic lamb and carrots. And so that's something that is just like, I eat that and I feel like I'm at my mom's house. So that's what I was making a lot early on. Now that the weather is turning and getting warmer, there's a traditional Lithuanian dish, which is where I'm from, or where I was born, and it's called shalty barshai, which is a cold borscht, and it's a sour cream and beet-based cold soup, sort of like a gazpacho, I guess, but topped with a ton of dill and potatoes and eggs, and it's just another thing that kind of brings me back to my childhood.
So when we talk about where restaurants go from here and what our restaurants will be looking like, because again, we don't even really know exactly when they'll be able to open up, or what will be able to come out of this. We already had a lot of restaurants who were on the edge. There had been so much expansion in the city of Detroit and the surrounding area in the dining scene. What do you think that we are going to see now in the next 6 months?
I think that anywhere from a quarter to a third of our beloved restaurants probably won't make it, or at least won't make it in the long term. I think before COVID hit, we were already seeing a little bit of a slowdown in this kind of explosion of new places. There was a saturation. People, every restaurateur 3 months ago that I spoke with talked about how difficult it was to find staff because there's, so many restaurants and so much competition. And now I think it's just instantly sort of flipped that equation, where there will be far fewer restaurants that survive. It won't be hard to find staff anymore. I really, I don't know that fine dining is going to fare well in the future. I think because of this return to comfort, we're going to see a lot of places that maybe were, the 300 kind of ticket price come down a little bit. The 300 for a couple, to have a bottle of wine and a meal come down a little bit. Just because the economy is in shambles too. So people just aren't going to have the money to support those types of places. And what I've seen so far is folks who are doing a brisk carryout service pre-COVID are the ones who are doing well right now. And I think that that's only going to increase. I mean, I think people are just going to continue to do carryout and delivery, at least, for the foreseeable future until we get over this thing.
Are we going to see more, I guess, virtual like cooking classes, help people cook at home?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everybody's making banana bread. Everyone fancies themselves now and own their own artisan bread maker. We've changed a little bit about how we like to prepare our food too.
Yeah, there's this interesting, I think, the last decade or so, there's been this kind of exaltation of chefs as rock stars and celebrities. And all of a sudden chefs have this, they're supposed to be outspoken members of the community, and they have this cultural, cachet. And I think now it's the home cook, right? Mm-hmm. Because everyone is stuck at home and needing to cook. And so these chefs are now helping us become better home cooks. So I know, like Mabel Gray in Hazel Park, which is one of my favorite restaurants here, James Regato there has been doing very popular cooking, Zoom, just like this, through this type of interface, Zoom cooking classes. So you go, I think, a few days before the class, and you pick up your kit, which includes all your proteins and everything you're going to need. And then on a Sunday, you spend 2 hours with James in the kitchen cooking alongside. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. It's been very successful for him and a few others in town. So yeah, I mean, just fundamentally what a restaurant does, I think, is going to change, and already has changed.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think we've also been forced to cook with different things as well in terms of what's been available.
Yeah.
If you get your fresh produce, or if you all of a sudden relied on things that were in cans. I think that there's been that shift of what will taste good and what's okay,
Yeah, I noticed this. I was at Kroger just a couple days ago, and I noticed that you could buy grass-fed bison right next to the beef now. Of course, that's likely a response to the fact that beef has gone up in price. The supply chains are under a lot of pressure, and all of a sudden, I can get bison at Kroger, which I don't think was happening a few months ago. So yeah, it is changing our cooking habits, our shopping habits. I actually find the experience of shopping now to be a little bit more unnerving, just because, especially produce, you really want to get your hands on it, you smell it, touch things to know what's good. I bought a terrible watermelon that tastes like nothing because I didn't want to be rummaging around.
You don't want to knock on it or.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to touch too much. And so, it's made shopping a little bit more challenging for produce and things.
Yeah, I have I ripped out something from a magazine about substitutions because I couldn't get my hands on flour for a really long time. So I've learned now to work with almond flour, whole wheat flour. I mean, all different kinds of different things. It's like, well, this is substitution. If you don't have oil, you can do this. And it's made me probably a little bit more of a creative chef at home, I guess.
Absolutely. I think, home cooks are being pushed to a new level of creativity that we never have had to before. And, the silver lining is that almond flour and whole wheat flour are better for you than a bleached white flour. So, you're doing better for your body too in that case.
Just don't tell my kids. Just don't tell my kids. All right. Mark Kurlyandchik from the Detroit Free Press. It's good to see you. Thanks for all of this. And we will chat again as the world continues to turn.
That sounds good, Christy. You be well.
Hey, yeah, you take care of yourself, my friend. Okay, we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Sounds good.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.